is always on August 19th. It was established in 1939 by Roosevelt in honor of Orville and Wilbur Wright. August 19th is Orville's birthday, as well as his sister Catherine, and he established that the world of aviation opened up the world to everybody. So so we have an Aviation Day tour. This is the first time we've done it, and I have completed it, and it is good to go. And it can also be a presentation at your club. We also have coming up our Wolf Walk, which is where you can bring your pets to Woodland and walk them on a guided historic tour. We do keep the water, around for the dogs. We just ask that you come in and clean up after them. But we will give you a tour. We partner with the Dayton Humane Society. They bring pets that you can adopt right then and there, or just walk them if you are interested in that. And then, of course, in October, we have what's called Woodland Days, and that is where we have our volunteers who dress up as our residents, and you take a walking tour, and we talk to you in first person. We tell their story through our interpreters. Now, I was a 7-year volunteer before I became the marketing and development manager at Woodland, and my very first volunteer job was playing Mrs. Leslie Carter, the woman scorned, and she has a really fun story, and I enjoyed that very much of playing her during Woodland Days. So also on this program sheet, there actually are 2 more programs that are not listed on the sheet but are available, and those would be the Grand Eccentrics. If you've ever read that book by Mark Bernstein, it is fabulous. It's a book about Charles Kettering, Colonel Deeds, John H. Patterson, Arthur Morgan, A.I. Root, and several others that came together, how their lives intertwined, and then especially after the 1913 flood, how the Miami Conservancy District came about and what they all did. It's a fascinating read. So with most of them buried at Woodland Cemetery, I gleaned some information from that book and I created a program on that. So I have a program called The Grand Eccentrics. And then there's another one that's not listed, and that's called A Tabloid History of Dayton. This is a shorter program. I just did it for the first time in Vandalia at their senior center. And in 1932, Howard Burbo was a reporter for the Dayton Daily News. And in 1932, he was writing history. So he was pulling articles and history from the mid-1880s and writing about that, or I'm sorry, the mid-1850s, 1800s, writing about that as history in the Dayton newspaper. So he wrote that Dayton's history didn't need to be written in a big volume of a book. He said it could be written on one news sheet. And that's what he did. So he listed all of the firsts that happened in Dayton: the first sheriff, the first house, the first bank, the first cemetery. And so I took that article and I translated it to how it is affected through Woodland, meaning either that person's is buried at Woodland or something happened with Woodland. So I have that one, and that's called A Tabloid History of Dayton. The other one that I have is the residents of South Park. Of course, South Park was built because of NCR. Patterson didn't want his managers to be too far away from work, and he wanted them to be within walking distance, so he established South Park as a beautification project so that his managers could be at his beck and call at any given time. So lucky them, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of other interesting people that lived in South Park, and those that are buried at Woodland, I talk about them as well. So.
That's part of the eccentrics, right?
No, that's part of the, yes, Patterson is part of the eccentrics. Absolutely.
That was before the unions came along, right?
Yes, absolutely, yes. If there had been unions during Patterson's time, he was already a hellraiser. He would have really flipped his lid on unions and everything. So, questions?
No, a comment. The workers at one time voted to strike, he closed the factory and went to Europe for 6 months, and when he came back, they gave him a ticker tape parade down Main Street. And I don't think they ever struck after that.
No,
Oh, wow.
fired someone because they used pepper in their home.
Oh, they use pepper. Well, he was very eccentric in that he went to, I think it was Bulgaria, and he noticed that people there had very healthy teeth, and they ate a lot of paprika. So he equated healthy teeth with paprika. So he had 4,000 pounds of paprika sent back to the commissary at NCR, and every meal then had paprika poured on it. And as far as another, it's funny, I'm looking at these pool tables. Patterson's underwear was made out of felt. So he only wore felt underwear. And when he no longer needed your services at NCR, he would take your desk out onto the lawn of NCR and set it on fire. And that's where your fire comes from.
Oh, wow.
So see, all these fun, see, you guys all learned something new today. So if you want to hear more of these fun, interesting tidbits and facts, let me come and give your group a presentation.
I want to know.
And if you want the titles and the descriptions of the other ones that are not on your sheet, my email is on that sheet. Just email me and I'll send you the updated listing. But I'm more than happy to come to your club program. I'm doing the Oakwood Rotary at 6:45 next Friday, so I can do morning, noon, evening. I can do bus tours. We have a 10-passenger bus that we can put a group of you on. If you're looking for an employee program, something, we can do a wine and cheese-it party up at the Lookout for your staff there at your firm.
Looking at me comes wine.
Well, because we do have several of your namesake at Woodland Cemetery. Plus, you guys like wine, and who doesn't like Cheez-Its, right? And did you know that the inventors of Cheez-Its were from here in Dayton, and they're buried at Woodland Cemetery?
Wow.
So,
That makes sense. I was wondering, why is she saying
Cheez-Its, yes! Cheez-Its is a Dayton, is from Dayton.
Totally go well together.
Oh no, wine and Cheez-Its go perfectly well. Well, beer and Cheez-Its. So we'll have a beer and Cheez-Its party, okay? All right, yeah,
I think Joyce had a question.
yeah.
Oh, I'm
Well, now she's,
I wanted you to tell the fun story about the creative financing that Patterson did with the federal government.
Well, you know, he was under indictment for violating the Sherman antitrust laws. And so then when the 1913 flood happened, basically he moved in and gave his own personal money and money from NCR that was never reimbursed, and basically saved Dayton. And everything, the judge looked at him and everybody was backing him and pretty much swept the whole case under the rug, and everybody was let go. But immediately after that, he quoted, 27 other men got me into this position and they've all got to go. So he fired all of them.
Oh, wow.
All of his upper management, including Thomas Watson, who would go on to found IBM.
And the moral of the story is it pays to give.
Yes, it does pay to-
Book anywhere about Patterson? Have you written a book or? is it-
Well, no, I've read several books. I've read the Catherine Beck Patterson book about the Beck family, that his wife, and they came from Boston. And then, so there's a lot of information there. The Grand Eccentrics has a lot of information there. You can get it at the library, you can get it at the Books and Company, other locations. But Patterson, I try to read as much as I can about him because we talk about him so much on all of the tours and programs that if I can find these little, excuse me, if I can find these little tidbits about him, it's fun. They're just fun tidbits to learn and to hear about. So he was he was a very eccentric man, but and I don't believe that some of his practices would be acceptable today, but he did give back a lot to the community. He did do a lot for the community, and I believe I heard the ground shake when NCR moved out of Dayton.
Oh,
so
yes. Yeah.
you know, he rolled over in his grave. So anyways, that's all I've got. So hopefully you guys will call me, come out, visit us and enjoy history of Dayton.
And just one quick question, because I can remember when I was a little bitty girl, you know, and I was raised in Edgemont, and
The Cracker.
Yeah, and at NCR every year, all the disadvantaged children would go to NCR and they could swim. They had a whole day of just fun and everything. You know, do you know, I mean, was that something he just did from his heart, or was it just another
Well,
fun? I mean, help me.
Patterson did things from his heart, but he also did it because it looked good for Patterson and it looked good for NCR.
Okay.
So, but he did give back because when I worked at the YWCA, I found some historical articles where the children from the Y could go over to NCR. They had the auditorium back then. They
Right.
would have a Christmas program,
Right.
and everybody would be given a food basket, oranges and apples
Right.
and nuts maybe for Christmas, and that was a treat back
Yeah, it
then. You know, if you didn't have anything,
Yeah.
and then you know, he made sure that that men could get a haircut at NCR, and he made sure that women always had an umbrella when it rained. So why? Not because he didn't want them to get wet. He didn't want them to get a cold, catch cold. And so he gave it because then, you know, the less workforce, then the less production was happening. So while he did all of these wonderful things, you know, and it looks great, and when you understand where he was coming from and why he was doing them, there was always a motive behind it. But he really did give a lot, and he really did bail out the city of Dayton after the flood. So we did honor him with naming Patterson Boulevard, you know, for him. So it's all good.
And that's good. That is good.
And in the Edgemont neighborhood, that is where the Green and Green Cracker Company was there at Cincinnati Street. And the Edgemont Cracker was a saltine that was named after that community over there where they had their cracker company,
And that's something. That is really something.
which is the same folks that made Cheez-Its.
Okay.
And he had interesting friends, because my great auntie, her name was Lucy, she was friends with him.
Oh, really?
And it was unusual, you know, because she was an African-American woman, but everybody looked at her like she was a lawyer. She was the go-to person if somebody was having a problem or something.
Oh, okay.
They just go to Lucy and stuff, and then she could go to Patterson or whoever and get things and make things happen and stuff. So
Yeah, he was very keen on certain people. He